The world famous Dresden, made famous in the 1996 movie Swingers. So money don't even know it.
Mike, I'm telling you, your money.
Los Feliz 3, American Cinematheque in Los Feliz, California. About to watch Friday the 13th, 2009, the remake. At Comic-Con 2008, I saw the Friday the 13th panel, and then in 2009, I saw it theatrically. Seen it many times at home, and then now seeing it once again in the theater. 35mm screening. I liked it, although I liked it a lot better now than I did then, but I still liked it even then. I didn't care for the tunnels or the kidnapping, but it was very straightforward. A lot of kills, a lot of female nudity. Sadly not Killer Frost, but everybody else. More nudity than would be allowed in a 2024 movie. You will not see perfect nipple placement in any 2024 movie like you will in this movie, Friday the 13th remake. 2009 was a simpler time.
Next one, and then you save it again. And then it's going to be, so now when you have to fix
But
it.
I don't know, so what I just input the numbers that you did?
Well,
Well, I mean, I honestly, we have the sheets going, so what, I actually.
I haven't double checked around the software, then I'm going to go for Saturday, but we can share the sheet.
That is my favorite. Yeah. Because I was.
I'm going to make this quick because we have a very fun intro from our guest. But quick house rules, guys. Please, no talking, no texting. Give all your attention to this beautiful 35mm print. That's right. Hell yeah, give it up. Yeah. And then last but not least, I want to give a couple shout outs to our volunteers, our staff, and to Jared in the projection booth doing the Lord's work. Give it up for him, please. That's right. All right, folks, without further ado, the person that is programming this lovely series, Killer Movies with Josh Miller. Let's bring up Josh Miller. Come on up, sir. Okay, I will also keep this crew. It's about the movie, not me. But anyways, Josh, if you don't know me, for 13 years now, I've been doing a series called Friday Night Frights, but I got sick of doing it on Fridays, so I rebranded it Killer Movies. That's all this is. Now I can also show action movies, which I think is fun. But I thought this was a great movie to kind of come back with, been on hiatus for a while. I feel like this is a movie that, I want to say it needs to be reevaluated, but it's not even true, because that's just by people my age. Everyone I know younger than me loves this movie. This was like their sleepover, their first Friday the 13th, their first Jason movie. And I think that's kind of, we're reaching that point where I still love the 80s and 70s movies, but I think it's, again, we're getting old. When I look out in the crowd, I see a lot of young people. Who's seeing this for the first time, by the way? Oh, that's exciting. Who's seeing this for the third time? Okay. But we have Jason himself, Derek Mears is here. We have the writers Shannon and Swift, who have a rare distinction with writers of having done not one but two Jason movies, because they also wrote Freddy vs. Jason. Next month, I'm going to be showing, this one felt like a safer bet. I'm getting weirder. Next month, I'm showing Universal Soldier, Day of Reckoning, with John Hives here. If you don't know it, I don't need to go into my own personal story with it, other than I went to a film festival and they were premiering the movie, and I'm like, why are they showing a straight-to-video Universal Soldier sequel? And then I saw it, and I was like, what is this movie? It's like a weird art house movie. People have compared it to like a Michael Haneke movie. Like, it's so bizarre. And the director will be here. And I think that'll be fun. But without further ado, Friday the 13th, 2009. See you guys after. Writers of the films, Shannon and Swift, also wrote Freddy vs. Jason, the Baywatch movie, the upcoming, not shot yet, Sam Raimi movie. This man, you might have seen him as a Predator. He was also a pirate in Pirates of the Caribbean. He was Swamp Thing. He was a hill that had eyes, and hills have eyes. He was Kick Puncher on Community, Mr. Derek Mears.
Come on, Derek Mears. Come on, give it up.
Two next.
He's been directed by David Lynch.
Look, he's been in a lot of movies.
I'm a fan representing fans. Listen, I'm so lucky if it all stops now. Thank you for whatever you believe in, the universe or whatever. I've been very lucky.
Beautiful.
Well, we'll start with the writing. I mean, not a lot of people have written 2 Jason movies to
We got
start
stuck in a
with.
rut early.
Yeah, it's a good rut to be stuck in, I'd say. But when did the conversation, Freddy vs. Jason is its own long, epic development hell that you guys somehow wound up on the successful tail end of. But when did the conversations for the reboot come up?
They came to us. We actually hadn't even heard that it was really in development. You always hear rumors and stuff. And then we just got a call, we just had a reputation for being sort of, experts on Jason and Freddy, and I think we were one of their first calls.
I think we were their second. To be honest, there's Mark Wheaton shares story.
Right.
And what's interesting about it, we didn't read his draft until much later, and when we read it, he had the same tunnels.
Yeah, tunnels in it. We thought that was pretty original at the time. We're like, tunnels, kind of explains how we can, move around so quickly, and he had it in there. We're like, oh my god, we're not that smart.
So we're like, okay, let's share credit with this guy.
And he's a super nice guy. I've never met him, but I'm sure he's a nice guy.
And then we just, we pitched Michael Bay and Platinum Dunes boys, Brad and Drew, and they loved the fact that we put someone in a sleeping bag and roasted them.
And for us, it was just, we loved being able to take a second crack at Jason. I mean, this Jason is very different than the Jason in Freddy vs. Jason.
This is the best Jason, really, come on.
It is not a competition. Like what you like.
So lucky to get
Ronnie
this
saw
guy.
that the other Jason's more of a ghost samurai, he called him, and we really wanted to make him sort of a feral beast again, like an animal, someone that can think. We love the idea of traps and the chain and the bells, so.
He's a whiz with a bow and arrow, obviously.
And then, Derek really surpassed every expectation and every hope that we possibly could have had.
Yes, the brutality that he brought to it was, when he's throwing those canoes around, it's just, just tell us for a second a little bit about those canoes. How did that happen? Was that Marcus directing you? What did you do there?
No, we were doing the scene. It was really weird because the canoes are here and the cameras are shooting this way, and they had everything set up so they're having me throw the canoes towards camera. And I'm like, that's not safe. And they're like, no, it's cool, it's fun. Like, you're not gonna go this far. I'm like,
You can throw pretty far.
But no, we just did the scene. It was funny because what I remember most about that actual scene is after we yelled cut, I was just chucking canoes and letting the emotions out. And they yelled cut, but nobody moved. And they just kind of stared, and I'm like literally like you're the actual, crew, and I'm looking at everybody, and I'm like, did we get it? Did we know it? Okay, teamwork. Got it. Yeah, it was super crazy.
Not too many people could say they were chucking canoes. Really.
Yeah.
You don't hear that very often.
And I'll say, I was sitting in the back row, and my buddy was sitting next to me. When you came back in from the bathroom, he was like,
I noticed that. I was sitting in the back when I saw him coming up the aisle. I was like, Jesus Christ.
Well, so I guess that's kind of a question. I think everyone, even if they're not an actor, kind of understands how actors get parts with dialogue. You go in, you read a scene. What is the process to win a mute character like Jason Voorhees?
It's funny that you asked that because that's what Lisa Fields, our casting director, said when I first went in for the very first meeting with her. She's like, look, there's no dialogue for this character, so I'm not sure how to actually audition you.
We do have these canoes.
It'd be amazing to have all the canoes set up. They did have a blue line on the wall behind me, which was a representation of Jared Padalecki's height, because they wanted someone who's big enough, so they would have like a kind of a feel. Someone who's formidable for Jason. So Lisa tells me, just look, I don't know how to audition you. And she goes, well, this time around, the writers and producers are talking about they want, like, they've made him more of a character than an essence or a presence to them before. And so they wanted someone who could actually act but also survive, the physicality of it. She goes, with that, like, why do you think we need that? And I go, so I started getting very like actory and getting into how language is only 10% of communication and how the script is our blueprint for everything. And you approach it, a role without dialogue as if you had dialogue. So as long as you're committing sincerely to whatever's going on in the scene, you have to trust that energy is coming through the mask and is captured on film. I go, I'm not going to show you if I can, I can only see with one eye. I'm not going to show you how I'm an actor or how I'm a body actor. And I go, that's indicating that's bad acting. And I go, as long as you feel it and it's real, everyone else is going to feel it. And I also got in like Greek mass theory and started getting a little weird. And they were like, she's like, you might be overqualified for this. I go, I'm not. I sort of got I'm a nerd. But yeah, that's kind of how it all came about. And at one point they asked me, they go, are you familiar with the series at all? And I'm like, like, which one do you want to talk about? Like part 4, Ted White's my favorite Jason. Like, what do you need? I go, I'm a huge, like, Friday's my favorite horror film and my favorite horror character. So it was very surreal to be there in the first place.
I didn't know that Jared was cast. So that you were cast to play off of him. And
He's a big boy, by the way.
He's a big guy.
He's huge.
And again, not that anybody's counting, but you are the second tallest Jason.
Tied for the first, actually.
Oh,
That's good, right.
Yeah.
Take that.
Yeah, 6'5", baby, me and Kirsten.
Yeah. I was kind of thought it's the 21st century. Jason's got to get even bigger.
Well, Padalecki's like 6'4", like 200 and a lot. That guy's a beast.
No, yeah, someone who watched Supernatural and he's like the nerd brother. This guy's like a big Sasquatch.
I'd like to see them switch parts, actually. It would have been an interesting.
Yeah, right.
Jason with the beautiful hair.
That'd be awesome. That'd be sweet.
There's a lot of hair in the movie. The styles were very, there was a lot of coiffing. Did you notice that?
2009.
2009, well, I mean, Willa Ford's in it. That puts the date on it. I mean, going back to, it's true. Going back to the script a little bit, you talk about pitching, and I'm curious because as someone who's familiar with a lot of the Friday the 13th movies that didn't get made, and I do think that it sort of has a problem where people start overthinking it a little bit. What is it like to pitch? Like, what was the pitch you talked about when you had to go and
I'll tell you, the
pitch?
final pitch had 13 people around the table, and it was 2 studios, and it was Michael Bay, it was 2 studio presidents. I mean, it was nuts.
It was a shit ton of producers. It was crazy. But you're talking about what we were saying to them.
I mean, even like,
think
both
I
what
blanked
you're
out.
saying, and even amongst yourselves, when you were like, well, what is this movie? And like, what were you excited?
Here's where we started. It's like, I saw the first Friday the 13th when I was 10 years old on VHS at my friend's house for booze. And I wasn't allowed to, but I saw it, and it left a huge impression on me. A huge impression. And we said, how do we make that same movie for a new generation and kind of celebrate the old tropes of the old movies and the things we love? And that's where we kind of just started talking back and forth, I believe.
But I think we hopefully tried to understand the DNA of it. It's like the goofy side characters, and it's different than the so-called torture porn stuff. I mean, there is kind of a goofy fun to it, I hope. Along with the moments of violence, I wish I honestly could even spend more time with the characters. So you kind of fall in love with them a little more. But, Friday the 13th has a particular tone, and I think it affects the younger you are, you kind of get imprinted on it. Like, I know we have an affinity for number 6. So it just depends on sort of how old you were when you first saw it. But we tried to, like, make this a young person's favorite Friday the 13th, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I think it's funny because I remember when it came out, some of the criticism from people who didn't like it was they're like, oh, it's so mean. I'm like, oh, I mean, like Friday the 13th 1, especially 2, those are mean movies. They're just older now, I guess.
And
People-
2 is a huge influence on this,
Yeah.
obviously, with his mother and all that.
I'm also curious, was there, because the kind of the whole back, basically like the first movie happens within seconds of this one. Was there ever a longer version of that, or was that always kind of the idea that that was just a kind of quick breeze through?
We talked about it a lot of different ways. The flashback actually originally was in the middle of the movie. And then when we cut it together, it just didn't really kind of seem right. But yeah, we talked about it a lot of different ways, but one of the big things that we felt is, we just wrote things that we wanted to see. We wanted to see him in the sack. We wanted to see him in the mask, and we just stuff that we wanted to see as fans. So it kind of became, sort of the first 4 movies, if you will, in a prologue, and then afterwards. So, we weren't intentionally trying to give you a primer, but we just kind of, as greedy fans, wanted to do all these kind of different things with Jason.
Yeah, it kind of has kind of a best of kind of quality for us when we were talking about, starting it over and should, instead of, having to wait to do all those things and let some other writer write them.
Also, I was impressed that you guys, also, that you told me before that we were supposed to immediately go into the sequel, and when you wrote the kills for this one, you purposely made them smaller, knowing that we could expand later on, going into the future ones, which I thought was brilliant.
There's going to be a reading of part 2 later. Not so
Part 2 script's really good.
I wouldn't doubt it. Derek, also looping back to what you were saying about a fan of the series, and again, the challenges of a non-dialogue, non-facial performance. I guess kind of a question not only about how you built out your character, but to what extent you thought about trying to do things different than the other Jasons. And Kane Hodder's obviously famous for his seething kind of breathing. But just what was the thought process? How do you put together the character?
Well, honestly, the same thing I said before, using the script as a blueprint, the gifts that they gave me, I did a lot of research on child psychology, being that Jason's been rejected from society and his only tie to love is his mother, what those effects would be, being that his mother is taken from him now that he's left alone. And what those effects of being alone, I studied a lot of within the survival, the psychological effects as well, because finding out that as human beings, we're pack animals, we're not supposed to be alone. And going into the details of for military paratroopers who didn't meet up with the rest of their party and how to survive, and the mental ups and downs. So exploring a lot of that, a lot of stuff is just for me, getting into the character and kind of organically letting things come out as they do. So not with anything in particular in mind for the character, but it coming out. Because the one thing I talk about, I've been so lucky to do a lot of remakes and reboots for different characters, is similar to what you guys were talking about before, is that you have to be respectful from the fans that have made the IP to where it has become today, but also you have to take a risk for a whole new generation who has no idea what Friday the 13th or that IP is about, and you have to take a risk for something new to draw them into it. And the hope always is, on my part, is when this next generation comes in and they like it so much that they'll go back and watch the originals that we all grew up on and loved and going now you're part of the family now. But you have to be very, very respectful, because if you don't, I see some actors approach certain roles I didn't read the old ones, or they're going, we all have a personal relationship to these characters from the past, where it's not just for everybody. We have a one-to-one with how that character is, and you have to be very respectful for that. Because if you don't, then you're losing the whole essence of why we're doing this in the first place.
Yeah, we try to throw a ton of stuff in for fans, obviously. There's stuff, you're done with time oh, that's Mark's wheelchair, little tiny things. And I remember when we were making the movie, and Brad Fuller, one of the producers, came up to us and was like, somebody just told me, did you guys know there's 13 kills in this movie? And we were like, yeah. Yeah, man, we know.
We counted.
There were some times during the film it was so great. Like these two and Scott Stoddard and myself were the fans of the series. So there were certain times things would go down on set and we were like powwowing, but okay, in part 3 he didn't do, well the mythos, right? Technically he wouldn't be swinging, and we would break it down like giant nerds. Like we'd literally pull it like, as if we were like pulling out fangos with flashlights. Well technically it was the best.
I mean, I'm curious to what extent there were or weren't any sort of marching orders as far as what the reboot, because again, not to bring up the complaints people have, remember some people were like, Jason isn't fast, which is, I'm not even sure what that means. There's been a zillion different Jasons. He's
Well,
moved
shit,
quickly.
he's
but-
been plenty fast.
Yeah,
Right?
but I guess was the idea like we don't, because he had become very slow, I think, and people were also comparing like Freddy versus Jason, but that was also, they were trying to make Jason different than Freddy. Freddy's the talky guy, and this was kind of the Frankenstein version of Jason. But he had become increasingly slow as he evolved. Was the idea, let's bring him back to what he was like.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we didn't get a lot of marching orders, but I don't think I've ever told this before.
Careful.
Michael,
Don't destroy the pact.
Yeah.
Swift and Shannon had a career.
Michael Bay did say one thing to us that was pretty funny. So we had an early meeting, and we were like, listen, Michael, they haven't reopened the summer camp since the beginning. We think it would be amazing. We start going into how awesome it would be to open a summer camp again. We got counselors, and Michael just looked at me and he goes, summer camp's not cool. No. Summer camp's not cool. Okay, there's a rich kid, he's got a cabin. It's like, we had to do an early
Rich
visit.
kids are cool. He probably had a bad summer camp experience.
But we did convince
Yeah.
it, but we did have summer camp reopening in part 2. So we had to wait, and then we did have it in part 2.
I guess might as well jump ahead to that. I mean, yeah. I mean, number 2, we all wanted it. The movie kind of did well. I know there was a lot of rights issues that happened behind the scenes, but
It's just complicated. There's 2 studios. I mean, it's honestly a lot harder than people think it is. It's like, well, people want it. It's like, yeah, we want it too. But I mean, there's just a lot of cooks in the kitchen, 2 studios, rights holders. It just got very, very complicated very quickly.
And they couldn't make this guy's deal.
yeah.
Derek wanted too much money.
And he's like,
I want 2 action figures.
this one, Jason sings.
Yeah, idiots.
Talking about nice quaffs. And
Segway.
And I feel bad because actually I didn't really even think about it until like this week. I was like, I should have invited him. Obviously, Jason is the star of a Jason movie, but I think maybe my single favorite human in the entire franchise is Trent, played by Travis Van Winkle. Really, like,
Honestly,
that guy got the assignment real hard.
he killed it. He really, really did.
And I know that one of my friends in the audience wants me to ask, because both were Michael Bay movies, and his character in Transformers is also named Trent.
That came out.
Explain.
That came out. We just randomly knew that the asshole had to be called Trent. And then they cast Travis, and they were like, but of course, he's already called that. And then they're like, wait a minute, cross the universe.
It makes sense to me.
And they
He
were,
does have a
and they
different
liked
last
it. They
name,
were like,
though,
let's keep
check.
it.
And honestly, we refused to change it. We're like, no, he's Trent. I don't know what to tell you.
And the wild thing about Travis, by the way, as a side note, when I do appearances, a lot of times fans will come over and explain how much they hate that character and hate him. And I start giggling because I'm like, oh, you have no idea. Like, out of everyone that I know, he is the most legit, true to his word, kind human being.
Yeah, it's great.
Where on his own time, he will literally go, like, he'll raise money to go build schools and like waterways in like third world countries, and like goes himself and like he's like a big star, but he doesn't buy into any of the Hollywood crap. But he gets friends and they again goes and helps third world people. And I'm like, oh my God, you're handsome, you have abs, and you're a good person. Like, fuck you.
Well, we're just piling it on. One of the first movies I wrote out here was called National Lampoon's Dorm Days 2.
Yes.
You No need to see it. But I did also write the first one, National Lampoon's Dorm Days 1. You also don't need to see that. But Travis was in part 2 in the super tiny part named Frat Dude. And I just remember, I won't say who it is, but there was an actress who was like a former child star, and she was just like complaining about how crappy the craft services was because it was a cheap movie. But it was like one of Travis's first movies. I just remember it was like a scene in a movie about movies where she was just like, complaining about craft services, and walked away, and he walked up and just like grabbed like a Twizzler or something, like, this is so cool that we get free food. And I'm like, I like this guy. And then he popped up in Transformers, and then was like so good in this. And I was like, that's fucking awesome.
He's such a good dude. The very first time we met, we were like literally, I checked in the hotel and I was waiting for the elevator. I shouldn't even tell this story, it's so gross. We're literally like, he's standing here, I'm standing here, we're both looking straight ahead. He looks over, I look over at him, and he goes like, hey, you here for Friday? And I go, yeah, I go, and at that time, everything slows down, because we've all done it, so I'm not the monster in the room. There's a little piece of spit on my bottom lip, and as I talk, I go, yeah, I'm that. Slow motion, and he goes, yeah, you're that. We're both quiet. We have a moment together. We're staring at each other, and we go, both exhale, go, yeah, well, that just happened. I go, well, now, in tradition, being that part of me you've now consumed, you now have my power, and our friendship's to the next level. And he goes, great meeting you. So that's how Travis and I first met.
And he came up with perfect nipple placement.
Credit where credit is due. I also just like that he calls her dude. All right. Well, don't make me regret this, guys. Open this up to the audience. Right up front here.
Writers, did you guys get more freedom with this script than you did with Freddy vs. Jason?
I would say we rewrote it fewer times. Freddy vs. Jason, we rewrote it a lot, right?
That's true. Yeah,
We did fewer passes on this one.
I think because of Freddy vs. Jason, the producers trusted us because they really didn't know the franchise very well. They said, these guys know it, these guys have been through it. We did present ourselves as experts, and they're like, let's trust these guys. So. And it also helped that this movie, as we wrote it, was backed up right against the strike.
Yeah.
So it was like, bam, we finished the script, turn it in, strike, and let's go make it. Just kind of, they had no other choice.
Yeah, they were kind of backed into it. Yeah.
I was, Jason was my guy growing up as well, and I get that it's mostly a budgetary thing, but I do think it's crazy that we've gotten so many Friday the 13th movies, and we've still never got Jason in the snow.
I know.
Was that ever a discussion in either of the ones you worked on?
Are you kidding? Definitely.
Okay.
Okay, I'm started. Okay, let's hear it,
We
Mark.
started on the snow.
Yeah.
You got it.
Our entire sequel was going to be set in winter.
Ah!
And, we've always wanted to see it. And then
Derek said, that's too cold.
let it be cold. It's extremely expensive. So what we were going to do is, we really love the extended long prologue. I think this is like 18 minutes, 19 minutes. And we were just going to have that in winter. So we wrote it. So it starts off in winter, and then it cuts to, flashes to summer and the reopening of the camp.
And who gets introduced later? What iconic character?
Oh, yeah. You go.
Can you say it?
Spoil it.
I was in there, and I'm like, what? Tommy Jarvis? I mean, come on, man. Come on, so cool.
Was it going to be Corey Feldman?
No, I'm sure it wasn't.
Yeah. Right there.
I'm curious, when you're making a movie like this, going in a universe like this, it doesn't have to be totally plausible, it doesn't have to be totally realistic, but you also know you can only go.
You noticed that.
Discrete moments, yeah. Like, do you have, from the beginning, do you establish guidelines of this is too far, or do you just do it on a case-by-case basis as you're working through the scenes?
Typically, we do. Yeah, we try to.
I think Friday the 13th exists in its own universe. I mean, we try to make those kind of characters like the other films, you know, like we said earlier, it's a question of tone. There's a goofiness to it, there's hopefully a good-naturedness to it, that it sort of exists in its own reality, but it's a question of tone. And sometimes stuff would come up with Marcus, like he would throw something at us and I'm like, I don't think it's gonna, you know, and then some stuff you have to let go, you're not gonna win every battle.
Yeah, Marcus's sense of humor is oblique, to say the least. But I will say the one thing you don't make a joke about is Jason, because that ruins it. I think that ruins the tone. So we were always very careful about that.
And then just quickly, just to get this in there, I mean, this is such a beautiful looking film. I mean, I don't think any of the Friday the 13th ever took that time for cinematography and production design.
Daniel Pearl did an amazing job.
It looks great, good print. Actually, my only complaint about the movie, watching it 15 years later, the font in the opening credits.
I see that, I see that.
But, I mean, say what you will about the Platinum Dunes movies, they all look amazing.
And it's not an expensive movie. I mean, it was really difficult on the filmmakers. I mean, they didn't have a lot of days, they didn't have a lot of money. So I'm always impressed, you know, when I see like what they were able to pull off.
What was that,
Yeah.
Courier? I wondered about that myself. It's like, it looks like, oh, the writer said Courier.
Sure. Right there.
I was curious about where the weed subplot came from. And it's kind of ambiguous in the movie, but is there an origin?
So yeah, I mean, I was talking about the DNA of the Friday the 13th movies earlier, and weed's a part of it. So we felt we had just enough. And then in some of the early meetings, you know, Mark was like, you know what's gonna be great? They're there at the beginning to find weed. And we're like, no, we got a lot of weed later. You know, maybe they shouldn't be in, but like that was one of the ideas that Marcus really wanted. You know, they're gonna find weed at the beginning. And I was like, okay, you're not gonna win every battle. So, you know, suddenly, you know, everybody wants to put in weed and now there's nothing but weed.
You could have cut down on the masturbation a little bit.
That was good. I said cut down the masturbation. You wanted to put it back in. No, but so, you know, then like we have people coming up to me like, why is Jason a weed farmer? He's not a weed farmer.
I can't tell you how many Q&As I do at cons where it opens up with one, usually the host going, here's my crazy take. Okay, ready? What if Jason is a weed farmer? Cool, yeah, that's it. Oh, what, that's yours? Oh.
Jason likes the party. Back there.
What was the inspiration behind the sleeping bag fire deaths?
Oh, well, I mean, as you know, sleeping bags are, I'm sure you could tell me the references in the other ones. So we wanted a sleeping bag kill. So, I don't know, we just love the idea.
There's that great sleeping bag kill, I think it's the King Hodder.
Yeah, the tree, come on.
The tree.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And we're like, let's do one.
And the Jason X.
Of course,
Yeah, yeah.
a celebration of that one. So we wanted our version, which got a little gruesome, I guess.
I feel like the big shot from the trailer, it gets a big shot when it screens, is from the opening prologue, the final moment where you run up.
All mirrors.
Just swings.
All mirrors.
Like,
A lot of times, unless it's technical, I don't watch. I personally stay away from it because I don't want to think about it and all, unless it's something I have to technically hit or a certain angle. But I do remember when we actually were doing that, Marcus came over to me at one point and he's like, Derek, you're doing this thing with your fingers and your hand. You're just doing, I just need you to come down. I go, yeah, but if you're actually going to hit somebody like this, I go, that's just your hand. I go, it has to be the whole body behind it. And I go, from the strike, if you get you relax, and the last second you tighten. He's like, okay, just do your shot. And I'm like, yeah, it's what you used to the actual trailer. That's what you did. I was right. So I'm happy that it turned out.
He was always right.
trailer shot, baby. All right, anything over here? Way back there?
Did you guys go into your script writing process with the hopes and idea of Danielle Panabaker's character Jenna becoming, or having the audience become emotionally invested with her throughout the film, to later have her submit?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And wow, I feel like she's so lovable in this movie. You just, like she's that, what you're possibly thinking is gonna be the final girl. You love her, you're rooting for her, and we just wanted to kind of pull the rug out from under you and give you that moment. And we had a different, oh my God, we had a totally different kill that was insane.
I couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
But we always wanted to surprise the audience and by subverting expectation, and killing the girl you definitely thought was going to be the final girl. And I just saw some ones the other day. It was like the 20 characters that didn't deserve to die. It was like, she was like number 2. And I was like, yeah, that makes me happy then.
What was the other kill though?
It was just, we did a few actually. One was on the side of a cliff.
Yes, we had this crazy thing where it was, at the end, they're trying to come down the side of this cliff. And of course, this is a mining town, that's what explains kind of the tunnels all over. But there was these chains, and Jason was kind of wrapped in some chains. He was upside down, and they were climbing down the others. It was kind of this pulley effect. And they finally get down, and Jason cuts the chain. He flies down, and he's falling. He plants the machete in her head and keeps going.
And then she turns to Padalecki, and she's got a giant machete in her head and blood coming out of her nose, and she goes, "Do you hear that?"
You can't have a pulley.
He's like, "Can't do it. Can't do it."
Robots are one thing, pulleys are another. Right there.
How did you go about writing the scene where they're taking down Jason? Like, it was such an iconic taking down of him.
Oh, the final scene.
Yeah, where he's in the chain and the.
Yeah, I mean, we always knew it was going to be wood chipper was from the very first draft. But we had it down, at one point the wood chipper was going to pull him in the lake. I mean, it was more complex.
Yeah, it was. There was something else, because then we had to reshoot. And
Houseboat.
Houseboat we had at one. No,
That's right.
Did we actually write the houseboat?
Did we?
I can't remember.
2008, yeah, it's a long time ago. I don't think we did the houseboat.
No, who said that? Get that guy out of here. Yeah. But it was always the wood chipper. But it was more violent at one point.
There was a lot more blood spray on.
Well, there was supposed to be a lot more blood spray, but
Did they shoot
the
that?
accident that happened, it didn't, do you remember that at all?
Yeah.
Because originally what they did, Stoddard made the fake head and put all the fun jelly and the brain parts in it. And he goes, the only thing you have to make sure is, because when we have the actors close by the blades, they were the plastic blades, like the hard plastic. When we do this shot for the effect shot, you have to put the regular blades in. And they're like, no problem. They did not. So you see it when the blades actually hit it, his head goes in a little bit and starts to kind of chip away at his head a little bit. Yeah. So it's not, it was supposed to be a whole blood splatter out of control. But also I thought, in hindsight, I go, oh, it actually kind of helps justify that he still might be alive.
Sure, right.
And also like for the kind of the dreams. Also, I was going to ask you guys, like, for the finale, every time I watch it,
Yeah.
it's the different film stock, I believe, right? So you don't know. You guys presented it going, it could be a dream sequence, it could
Yeah,
not, just doing an
that's right.
homage to the first one, correct?
That's right. I think they were supposed to then cut to Pinhead, who wakes up and it was a dream or something.
Well, the thing that I miss is originally Marcus had shot a lot of aftermath right after the wood chipper. So you go and you see the beer cups turned over and the fire's still kind of going out. And we had great voiceover from Pamela, from Jason, and she says that it's his birthday. And we saw it. We saw that cut.
It was awesome.
And it was fucking awesome. And then they were like, hey, in the movie we could lose a minute or two. And we're like, no! And so they go right to the dock, and I've always missed that. I always think the audience wants to take a breath, take a beat.
Yeah.
And it was really cool they cut it.
Did you ever see that? Oh, it was really cool.
It was awesome.
Cool. Like to see that someday.
I actually have a question for Derek. This I really.
Will you look me in the eyes when you ask me?
Can I get your autograph? No. There's the very long, prolonged sex scene with Bree and the perfect nipple placement.
The killer cut is even more prolonged.
Yeah, but originally that scene, for us, we wrote something that we thought was really cool, where we were trying to take a trope and twist it. And what happens is, Whitney actually escapes from Jason's lair, and at the same time that, Bree and Trent are having sex. And what happens is there's a big picture window there in the background, and you see while they're fucking in the foreground through the window, oh my God, there's Whitney, and she's making her way to the window. She's running, and you see the bodies kind of moving in between. You see her coming. Then Jason shows up, and he's chasing her, and just before she slams the window, he grabs her and pulls her back. And it's kind of this climax that happens outside.
And they said, that was stupendous.
And I was, did they ever shoot that? Like, what happened?
Yeah, we did. Actually, we did shoot that.
I'm sure it was very difficult to, technically to achieve.
Well, you had to time it right with her going to the window, but the difficulty was listening to the two in the bedroom complain and make fun of each other.
Yeah.
Like Travis going like, "Oh my God, like sex scenes are not fun. I'm so chafed. This is the worst. Like anyone who thinks this is great, shut up. It's the worst." And they're both like, "Oh my God, I'm so sore." So gross. But they would make jokes. And I'm trying not to laugh in the mask, but no, the one scene where Amanda runs out in the last second, I lit like a football player. Like she literally right to the window, and like I grab her and literally like a on the window with her. She barely touches it and just gets pulled into the darkness.
Wow, I wonder what happened why they didn't put it in.
I don't know. But,
They cut together.
but also, I always like hearing, like, when I go to cons, I like hearing things like, I become friends with some of the older actors that I grew up on, and like hearing things that were supposed to happen that didn't happen, and I'm like, tell me secret stories. Like, for myself, like, when people ask like what my favorite kill is for the actual film, like the one we actually shot would be the Aaron Yu kill, the Saving Private Ryan screwdriver.
Oh, it's brutal.
But my favorite when the first earlier drafts was, could you explain what was supposed to happen with the water with Willa Ford and the original kill there?
Yeah.
Which I thought was great originally. I like them both.
It's exactly like a shot where no one gets, the bow in the head, the boat hits her and she's woozy and she sees Jason there. And basically she starts swimming this way, Jason mirrors her movement. Goes this way, mirrors. So she basically is just treading water out there, crying, screaming. And then we cut and it's now nighttime and now she's still treading water. And he's just waiting, he's just not gonna move. And then she finally gives up and she drowns. And it was brutal. And they were like, listen, we don't have this location for day and night. We got to do it at day. Can you think of alternates for how we can put it in the day? But originally, yeah, it was just going to be like this brutal thing, like basically a kill that takes hours.
Yeah, and then they're like,
Yeah.
so can you come up with something that's a little bit more whiz bang, and then you get the under the dock.
Yeah, they're saying they needed a jump scare for the energy. They wanted to keep the volume or the balloon up.
I remember
They switched it.
a detail that we were very specific on, which they actually did, was that when the machete comes down, that her eyes should turn up and go white. And they did it.
All right, maybe one more. What do we got?
He's really got the handshake.
All right.
I want to talk about Derek's eye acting.
Eye acting. In the bathroom.
The best eye actor in the business, ladies and gentlemen.
Go on.
There's so much talk about it being just a mass performance, but this movie, unlike I think any of the others, that there's so much, the few shots of your eyeball that we can see, that it just looks so evil. Like so much hatred in this. And you talk about your process, were you aware of that?
I have a lot of parental issues I let out on camera secretly. No, it's the same thing I talked about before. Like you use the script as a blueprint, and you have to trust. You have to commit to that moment necessarily, whatever's going on, and you have to trust that it comes out. Because if that monitor on my head's turned around and it's not true for me, it's going to be false to you, and then we're all out of the scene. We're like, why am I watching this?
The eye always tells the truth. I'm serious.
Oh, I'm backing you up.
No, please.
No?
Best eyes in the business.
All right, you guys, thanks so much for coming on.